Alright, so we're back on the Rambler video, and in the last video we began by cutting the front of the Corvette frame off, and we assembled our frame structure that we're going to use underneath the Rambler. So this frame structure we designed in a CAD system called IronCAD, cut the entire frame out using a water jet, bent it with our press brake, and then welded it together. We also pulled our power plant out, which is an LS1 from a 1999 Camaro and a T56 transmission. So at the end of the episode, we have this complete CAD file where we have our frame assembled and our motor and transmission in our frame that we made. So now we got to start putting our frame members together. So we begin by laying them on our lift, flipping our table upside down so we can get the frame situated on the table, and now is the critical part of attaching the Corvette section of the frame to our custom frame. Now this alignment has to be key, because if it's off by any way, we will weld it crooked. So we have to get the frame set perfectly at the right height so we can weld it together accurately. So you can see we're using a floor jack to raise the front of the frame up, and then we ended up going with a bottle jack because it would be a bit more accurate. And then we have a piece of I-beam so we can support it, so that way it's perfectly flat whenever we go to weld it. Alright, so now the frame is clamped down to the table so it won't move. And we now have to set the width of the frame so that way whenever we weld it, it'll be at the perfect width. And we have that crossbar in the back to help us set the width, but we also have some tabs that are on the front of the frame that we made, so they'll slide into the Corvette frame. And this will let us line up the front of the frame so we can slide it in there, get the right alignment, and then cut off the excess that we don't need. So then we got this thing clamped right so that it wouldn't move, and we got our laser leveler out so that we can line up the frame perfectly flat, so that way when we get ready to weld it, it'll be at the exact spot that we need it, and then we can start welding this thing together. Once we put the rear suspension in, this is pretty much what it looks like. This is a cool view because we can finally see for the first time what it looks like in real life and how the car is going to sit on the ground in real life. So we are able to see where the tires are going to fit to the frame and see where the suspension height has to be set by the time the weight of the car body's on it. So now we need to figure out the interior for the car. So this was kind of a challenge because we were trying to find full interiors off eBay that come out of, like, we were looking at Dodge Chargers, we were looking at Cherokees, mostly SUVs, and we happened to have a 2003 Lincoln Aviator sitting out back for another project. So we were thinking of using the interior out of that, and we ended up thinking, well shoot, if we're gonna use the entire interior, why don't we just take the entire floor out of it, since we have to make a floor anyway. So that's what we did. We ended up figuring out a way to cut the entire floor out of the car and using it in our frame. So we started by just disassembling the entire interior out of the car, pulling the whole dash out, anything that would be flammable, because we're gonna cut this floor out with our plasma cutter. Plasma cutter is super easy to use, and it's awesome to cut stuff like this in a big section, especially getting in tight areas. It's a really nice tool to have. A plasma cutter will cut to a certain depth, but it won't cut through multiple layers unless you have it right up against it. So it took a little bit of finessing to be able to get the floor out completely. Cutting the firewall was also a challenge because we had to cut through the firewall, but behind the firewall is the engine, and behind the engine is a bunch of sound deadening, and is very flammable. So I was on the other side holding a hose while he was cutting with the plasma cutter to keep it from catching on fire. Once we got the entire perimeter of the floor cut out with the plasma cutter, the floor is 2 layers, so we had to go through the entire floor with a sawzall and then with an angle grinder to get the rest of the material that we missed or couldn't get with the plasma cutter. This took hours. We probably spent 2 days trying to get this floor cut out. But we finally got it hooked up to our forklift and tried to figure out a way to pull it out. So the biggest gap in the car, without cutting the roof off, was just to pull it through the back hatch. And this was a lot easier on video than it was in real life. It took us probably 2 or 3 hours trying to get this floor out of the back hatch of this aviator.
This is that one.
You can cut it here.
Just cut it right here. It's right here.
Yeah.
Right across this corner.
So we figured out that the hatch wasn't big enough to get the floor out of the back, so we had to cut the back hatch off a little bit.
All right, watch your arm.
Oh, wait, hold on, it's hitting this. All right, go. Go.
All right, here we go.
All right. Jump. It's out.
Yay! Look at that. That was the easy opening can.
Finally got that floor out of it. Not sure why we just didn't lift the body off, but that's something I was thinking about watching this footage over again. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We post Rambler videos every Friday. See you on the next one.